This is Haiti, once known as the Pearl of the Antilles, a jewel in the crown of the French Empire. But last month, food riots broke out in the streets of the capital, Port-au-Prince. 5 people died, and the Prime Minister was forced to resign. A few weeks on, and the United Nations are training the local police to deal with riots. The authorities are fearing that the worst is yet to come. Haiti is not alone in its hunger. World food markets are in crisis. Record population levels and the growth of China's economy has meant supply can barely meet demand. Add poor harvests, rising fuel prices, and the global cost of feeding a family, whether in Europe, Asia or the Americas, has rocketed. It is the poor who are the hardest hit. I have come here to Cité Soleil, the poorest slum in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. The people here are angry. The Haitian crisis is so extreme, it forces people to eat mud cookies called pica to relieve hunger. It's a desperate Haitian remedy made from dried mud and dirt. Even these edible clay cookies are getting more expensive, doubling in price in the last year. This is a hospital in the centre of Port-au-Prince. These 2 pregnant women were both found collapsed on the street.
She was very hungry, so she felt bad and fell on the street, and people brought her here at the hospital.
The World Food Programme estimates that because of hunger, up to 50% of Haitian women are now anemic. The WFP is now feeding 1.7 million Haitians and is now running desperately low on supplies.
Here we're in a nutritional center in a hospital, assisting people that are suffering for the increasing food prices that is affecting everywhere in Latin America and in all the world. Showing that there will be 10 more million people in need of food in Latin America and the Caribbean due to this food crisis, food prices crisis.
The sad fact is that in the back streets of Port-au-Prince, one can find markets selling food. The problem is that these basic goods are now out of reach of the poorest people in the Americas. The small traders can no longer sell their wares.
Yo pason here sick. Yo pason here maïs. Yo pason here pois. Yo pason here l'huile. Yo pason here indication ti moun. Yo pason here côté pour nous faire pour nous sel diri a yo besoin. Si moun à l'école sans manger les business na redi pour nous bagay pour manger. Et puis mes côté n'a vivre.
The startling thing about this market is not just the high prices, but that almost all of the produce is imported. Haiti has one of the best soils for farming in the Caribbean. Yet almost everything, even eggs, are coming from abroad.
So you have a country in the beginning of the 21st century which is completely decapitalized, and in the last 25 years no funds has been put in place into construction, infrastructure, and rebuilding this country really. So this country ended up by being fully dependent on the importation of foods and goods from the international market, and especially from the US.
This dependency on buying cheap and foreign instead of Haitian produce was forced on Haiti by successive corrupt governments and subsidized foreign markets for over 20 years. I set off to the countryside to try and find Haitian farmers. Max is a Haitian landowner who has desperately been trying to grow rice to sell at local markets. I asked him why Haiti could not grow its own rice.
The situation is very bad. It's critical, it's bad. Those people, the producers, the farmers, we have no support from nobody, from nowhere. We cannot compete with the other farmers who has all the technology to back them up, and they have the subsidies, the money to help them grow, and we don't have anything. How can we produce? Give me the tools to do it, we'll do it.
Engrais pas prend ouais, c'est fini. Pas de plan, pas d'engrais, nous pas une machine à tirer ou nous sécler, nous fait.
Total dependency on imports has left Haiti and its fragile population at the mercy of global markets. Now world food prices have risen, Haiti has no safety net or safety plan. Jesse Jackson recently arrived in Port-au-Prince to meet with the Haitian political opposition.
We intend to work and that we feed the hungry. Every child should have 2 meals at school every day.
The opposition parties have been accused by the president of using the food crisis to destabilize the government. Desperate to try and support the weak Haitian government, various projects and an immediate $10 million grant is now being promised to Haiti by the World Bank.
Where do you put the money? Do you put the money in giving food and going to the urgencies right now, because everything is a priority in Haiti, or you start rebuilding this infrastructure?
In order to remain in power, the Haitian government will use international crisis funds for immediate food relief. Of the Haitian population, 80% live on less than $1 a day. In the absence of any coherent plan to develop jobs and a self-sufficient Haiti, it seems that when the current donor food runs out, there will be more violence on the streets. This is Phil Cox, More 4 News, Haiti.